Do you need encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Hey, come on in. Let's get started here. Get some inspiration, some motivation, get you a good gold nugget. Get you 4 or 5 of them. But get one good gold nugget. It's going to help you when your next trial of tribulation come. And be sure to share it. Pay it forward. Don't take it to the grave, which is not going to help you, but you can help other people. Hey, today our podcast, we're having a guy here who was sentenced to 32 years in prison. But while he was there, he took the best that he could to better himself. He earned his bachelor's degree, become an electrician, taught some yoga, Spanish, and the old governor noticed how good he's doing and gave me a little pardon after 19 years. And we're going to talk about how he has come from there and has even built his own foundation, Second Chancer Foundation. All right, so let's go. Author of the book is The Best Part of Prison by Jesse Crosson. So Jesse, come on in, buddy.
Thank you for having me.
Like the book cover.
Appreciate that. We were trying to capture something that was like a little bit of confinement and a little bit of hope.
Yeah, I could see with the way the fence is cut to help provide the hope. I was just thinking of a quick getaway. So
Well, it was, I remember sitting on a rec yard and staring up at the sky, and that was where I found freedom. It was sitting on there, surrounded by people, surrounded by fences and concrete, but looking up into the sky and feeling that sense of wonder at this thing so much bigger than me, this thing that was so much better, and just feeling gratitude. So.
Oh yeah. I've heard other people. I hadn't interviewed just some other reels, and they were talking about the freedom was in their mind. I may be trapped here, physically, but mentally I could still live free. And then, several people has gotten with that innocent program thing.
Yeah.
Where they've been found out that they were truly innocent. So, but that's not your case.
No,
you actually got a governor that gave you a condition pardon.
Yes, sir.
All right. And you go ahead and jump into the story where we need best fit, and we'll hang in there with you.
So I was a kid like any other in this country. I had parents who were divorced, were struggling in some ways. I was struggling in a lot of ways, didn't really feel like I fit in, didn't really know where I fit in. I was always looking for something that could feel like home or could feel comfortable. And first time I did drugs, first time I drank alcohol, I was like, oh, this is it. This is the thing that makes me feel like I'm enough. It makes me feel a part of. Of course, even though that was a solution to one problem, it just created a host of new problems.
All right, hold on, Jesse. I want to say hello to your kitty cat back here. I'm
an
animal
Melody.
lover. What's
this
his name?
Is Melody.
Melanie. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. I'm an animal lover, so that's pretty good. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead and jump us back in now.
Well, I want to say I adopted Melody because somebody insisted, and it was the best decision I've made since coming home. But absolutely, hands down, changed my life. And maybe if I'd had Melody when I was younger, because doing drugs, drinking, and then I found cocaine when I was 17, and with a matter of 3 months.
You there. Yeah. Let me stop you just momentarily. You talked about if you'd had Melanie, things may have been different. I watched I'm in a wheelchair. I don't know if you know it. I got my neck broke playing football, and had a service dog. And I remember watching a documentary, and my service dog, part of his training was in a prison system in Mississippi. And I saw a documentary where they were talking about these prison inmates got a chance, depending on who the inmate was, and they built their trust and all that, to get that special, privilege to work with the dogs. And it was time for one inmate. His dog was time for him to go. He had taught him the best he could long enough, and it was time for the dog to go. And that man was crying. And they interviewed him and asked him, you're giving this dog, to go help someone in needs, and you ought to be happy you're doing it. But he came back and he said, that dog gave him that unconditional love that he didn't receive from his parents. And the same thing, if he would have received that type of unconditional love that dog gave him, he would hope things would have been a lot different.
Yeah.
So when
We had
you
a
say
program.
that, that's a true statement.
Yeah. I
So
mean, we had a program like that in prison, and I watched it change people's lives.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so when I was younger, I didn't know what I was looking for, where to find it, and so I found it in drugs, and I found it in the wrong people, and just after my 18th birthday, after doing cocaine for a couple months, I committed a robbery and a shooting, and I was not actually innocent. I was dead guilty. I was trying to get money for more drugs. I was going through this kind of crazy delusional phase in my life, and thought everybody was after me, and thought I was in danger, and had to be strong and carry a gun, and just caused a lot of harm because I didn't know how to make peace with myself.
yeah, it's yeah, going through, especially when you get in. I don't want to say the alcohol is the worst thing in the world. I don't drink. I have a hard time with it because my younger brother drank himself to death 2 weeks before he turned 38. He died, and so I got this mental block about alcohol. But I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's the worst thing in the world, but it can lead to. But people do responsible. People don't do like most everything. People do things responsible. People do things same thing unresponsible. So depending on what you're chasing and leading to, can lead us good or bad.
Yeah, I agree.
So good decisions, bad decisions. Maybe not good or bad. Good decisions, bad decisions. So
I would say for me, it was all the way around bad decisions, and I just kept compounding those. And so after I was arrested, I pleaded guilty to the charges I was guilty of, and the guidelines called for between 8 and 13 years. And as a kid who was 18, I was scared, but my lawyer said, "Hey, you did some really bad stuff. You're gonna have to do at least the midpoint of that guidelines, at least 10 years." And I said, "Okay, like I can do that. I got to own up. I got to be accountable." The day of sentencing, they modified those guidelines to 10 to 16 years. And when the judge clapped that gavel, he actually sentenced me to 32 years. So it kind of
wow.
went up exponentially.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Wow.
and
And
that
this
was
is the
that.
first time.
I was arrested for stealing beer as a juvenile, just ran
Okay,
into a
so
store. But
wasn't the first time in front of the court system. It just
yeah,
built up to this. Okay.
and built up really quickly because yeah, right after my 18th birthday, all of a sudden, 30 days later, or less than 30 days later, I'm sitting in front of a magistrate getting arrested.
Yeah.
Um, and didn't know what to do. At the time when the judge told me I was going to spend more than 3 decades in prison, I thought my life was over. I didn't see a way for it. I didn't
Oh
see.
yeah, yeah,
And at the same time, I knew it was my fault. Sometimes people are innocent. Sometimes people get a bad rap. Like I did this to myself. So in addition to the punishment, I had the shame and the guilt and the self-loathing and the knowing that I disappointed my family and disappointed people out there. I hated myself. I really didn't want to be there. Um,
yeah.
but thankfully, what I had people, including my family, including friends, including sport on the outside and the inside, who encouraged me and believed in me and pushed me forward. So this thing that could have been the last chapter of my book became really the first chapter of a new story.
Yeah, it's a lot of things in life is how we react and make better decisions for whatever happened to us. And some things, like you said, yeah, I'm glad that you were able to take accountability. You just want to say, "Yep, I'm guilty. I did it." How many other people deny, and go to court? And I guess it's lawyers' thing is always plead not guilty. I don't know from that, um, but how many times in life that we're doing the right thing, but then we got to suffer someone else's consequences for their bad decisions. And
Yeah.
a drunk driver, hitting the family, whatever. So I'm glad that you were able to parents instilled enough into you take accountability for your actions. So that's good.
And the other thing is, a lot of people think of accountability as a punishment, but what I found out was accountability was the first step to freedom. Because when I really stepped into it, when I really owned it, all of a sudden I wasn't running away from things anymore. Or I was running away from stuff from my childhood or stuff from the past or things that, had hurt me, but I wasn't running away from the things that I did. And by standing there and kind of taking it squarely on the jaw, all of a sudden I could make different decisions. I was free to live in a different way. And that was one of the blessings because like I said, it could have been the last chapter of my story. I could have been done, but instead I started living in different ways. I started helping other people. I started going to school, started getting an education. I started finding ways to help the people around me. And as a result of that, I found greater happiness and greater purpose and greater freedom in a cell than I ever had on the outside.
Yeah. Um, Not that I want to go there, but I would hope that I would be like you. At least I can help other people. Do something to make me still worthy. than just
Mhm.
laying around doing nothing and, crying and complaining about every little thing that happened. I would hope that I would be the type that would reach out and continue trying to help other people. Yeah.
Well, because for a long time, I thought redemption was about feeling guilty enough. Like if I feel bad enough, I feel enough shame, that'll mean I've made up for what I did. But what it really took was years of realizing that redemption is not sitting around feeling sorry for myself or sitting around feeling guilty. Redemption is showing every day to support and to help heal where previously I've done harm.
Yeah. Yeah. You're gonna throw enough guilt on yourself, but there's no need in worrying yourself to death over what's happened. Happened. Be sorry for it, regret it, but move on and try to do the
Yeah.
best you can. And again, I'm just all for. I'm all with this pay it forward stuff. So you can help someone else, and then they can use something to help someone else.
Yeah. And that's what I always did. Somebody had taught me when I was helping in prison first. Somebody said if somebody's never gotten anything for free in their life and you try to give them something for free, they're not going to trust you or they're going to think there's a trick. So the first person who asked me to tutor him to help him get his GED, I said, okay, well, you got to give me something, but you're the heavyweight boxing champ, so I need you to teach me how to box. And it did two things. One, it made him trust it because he felt like it was a fair exchange. But
Mm.
two, rather than the big, mean, violent guy, he suddenly saw himself as a teacher and a person who had something to give and something to share. So he helped me, I helped him. And really, I mean, that was one of the best interactions of my life because it helped me see myself in a different way and it helped him see himself in a different way.
Yes, I've learned that little what you just said. If you try to give things away, people don't take it as serious.
Yeah.
How good is this if you're giving it away? And I
Yeah.
did that with my first book I wrote. I'd go, hey, take my book. And then 6 months later, hey, did you read my book? Well, no, I put it on the shelf. And I'm going, well, I could take it and give it to someone else. I just instead of looking good on your shelf. But if I'd have made them invest into it early, they
Hmm.
may have stood a better chance of reading it. So that I mean, what you said, that's a great. Someone gave you some wise advice there. So
They did.
trade something valuable for your value, and
Yeah.
both of you are getting something out of it. And that was cool, yeah. And now he could be a boxing teacher,
Hmm.
when he gets out or if he gets out.
And he did. He got out. He started doing personal training. He started cutting hair. He started doing a bunch of little side hustles and making good money and
There you
living a good
go.
life.
Good
It
deal.
really took somebody believing in him and him being able to believe in himself, which was the same thing that happened to me.
That's
Uh,
yeah, that's a big mouthful there. You got to believe in yourself, but and I don't know why it's just our human nature. We want people to believe in us,
mhm.
and it's just that support system, you know. But yeah, it's a two-way street. Support me, and I'll support you, and I can support myself, believe in myself.
100%. And so that exchange was really the beginning of the path for me because I remember the day he came back from passing his GED and had tears in his face. And this is a guy who's 6'6", 260, just giant of a man who's crying and picks me up like a little kid and swings me around the room. He's so happy. I remember thinking, I've done a lot of things. I've been with a lot of pretty women. You know what? Nothing in the world touches the feeling I feel right now as I know that I was a part of this guy's success. And that was what I did while I was in prison. As I started helping people reach toward their goals and find some sense of freedom and sense of agency.
That's awesome. So I'm just visualizing that big old man picking you up like a rag doll, and he's been well, you said a boxing champion,
Yeah.
but this piece of paper to show that he can read and write according to our standards, our public standard, that he's equivalent to that, made him so happy. That's that guy. That's awesome.
It did. In all the years he'd been in prison, his family had never once come to see him. But that graduation was a big enough deal. They all got in a car, figured out a way to get gas money, and they came down to see him. And it's the same thing. He came back from graduation where he gave the speech, the valedictorian speech. He came back covered in tears, streaming, saying, "Thank you. Like you gave me something I didn't even know was possible." And again, when I
Hey,
was
that's
looking for
awesome.
purpose, that was it.
That's awesome story, man. That's powerful. Yeah, that's powerful. I don't know if you're on the speaking thing too, here, but you need to use that story as much as you can. That's powerful to show, yeah, this big old man of a champion, and just for him to learn to read and write meant so
Yeah.
much to him in the world, and the family bring the family back together for that.
Hmm.
And that's a powerful story.
It was a good one. And, I had a lot of stories like that because a lot of people wanted to get their GED or wanted to go to college or wanted to learn a trade and didn't have the opportunity, didn't have the money or didn't have the help or didn't have the understanding. And I got to be a small part of a lot of people's success stories. And that was a really gratifying thing.
I had a friend. He he was in and out of prison, and he's 61 years old, and he's going to be spending his birthday locked up again. Now he's in a county jail, but his thing is he gets drunk and does stupid things. I think I would have learned after the first 20 times, as long as I don't get drunk, I don't do stupid things. But he just still hadn't figured it out. But what I'm going to say is, these vocation trades or whatever to learn to do electrician, plumbing, mechanic. He was pretty good, decent car mechanic. And when he first got locked up for the first time in prison for a 5-year term, part of his requirement, or I don't know what they call it, was for him to take this automotive class and pass to get a certificate. He didn't do it, and they didn't follow through. His time was up. They couldn't hold him. They let him go without that piece of paper. So he could never find a good mechanic job anywhere without proof that he knew what he was doing. So I wish they would have held him to do that.
Yeah, a lot of people see classes as punishment. I always saw every class as an opportunity. Whether that was, I graduated from high school, but that was a trade that I took. That was a program. That was, a therapeutic thing. I looked at everything as an opportunity because I got nothing but time. I'm sitting here staring at a wall or staring out the window. I might as well do something with my time. And I found a lot of things to do. Not so many provided by the prison, mostly things that we came up with ourselves. But the more we came up, the more we found we could do.
Yeah, I would want to be involved in courses that's going to better me. I know a lot of people are different, but I just wouldn't want to sit all day just playing cards all day sitting there. I'd want to be into something that's going to be, and then even if I don't ever get out, I would still want to do that just for my betterness.
Even I never imagined that I'd be getting out early. I thought I was doing this because it was the best way I could spend my time. Like you said, like I'm at least bettering myself. I'm at least doing something. And even when I put in for the conditional pardon, when I submitted my petition, I didn't imagine it would happen because back then the governor would grant like 3 or 4 of these every 4 years, and only in cases where they had donated a bunch of money or there were some, extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just like doing the work. It was saying, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to put in for this, and then I'm going to be able to rest easy and know I've done my part, and I'll do the rest of my time with the peace of knowing that I tried. And then when everything started spiraling and changing, and all of a sudden I started getting feedback and people started actually getting grants, I realized like there was some chance this might come true. And the day it came through, when I walked into that office and they told me, Mr. Crosson, I hope you're sitting down because you're leaving Coffeewood today. You've been granted a pardon. That seemed like it came out of nowhere, but it really came out of all those years of all the programs and all the help and all the work. And it really was something I'd worked towards without even realizing it was possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sad thing. There's a lot of people that make bad decisions, but they really go in and straighten their lives out, and they don't get this second chance opportunity unless they fulfill their date, and then they're out, not getting the pardon to get out early. And then, like you said, someone go campaign and give to their, and next thing you know, they're buying theirs out basically, and whether they earned it or not. So it's sad, but the old thing, money talks, right?
Yeah, it does.
So
also, what you said about people not getting a chance, it's not just whether they get a chance in front of the parole board, in front of the governor. It's a lot of people just never had the opportunities. I felt guilty that I was able to go to college because I had family who was able to pay, but other people didn't. I felt guilty that I was able to get on the phone and call and ask for help or ask for guidance or ask for connections, and other people didn't. And that's a big part of why I started Second Chancer Foundation when I got out, because both while people are incarcerated and after they get out, I see a whole disparity of how many people have the support and have the opportunities. And I realize that I'm where I am because of that support, because of those opportunities. So if I can create those for other people, hopefully we can have a whole lot more success stories, a whole lot more successful second chance stories.
Oh, yeah. So give us some more ideas about your Second Chance Foundation, what y'all do with that.
So we've done a bunch of different iterations. We're always trying to figure out what's going to be the biggest impact. Right now, we're focused on 2 things. We do a lot of work in the local juvenile detention center where we bring in speakers every month, because so often we bring in college programs or work programs or, educational programs, and the kids would be like, hey, that's great, but that's not for somebody like me, or somebody like me doesn't belong there. And I realized that that's what these kids believe. That's what the world had in some way or fashion told them. So I started bringing in speakers every month who looked like them or came from where they came from or had the history they had, who said, yeah, now I work in business. Now I work in government. Now I work in academia. And all of a sudden the kids would have that light switch go on and they'd be like, man, maybe I do belong. Like maybe there is a place for me. We continue to do that. This past month, we got to talk about the book, which was neat because the kids said, I've never known anybody who wrote a book. I said, well, now you have. Let's talk about it. We also are designing a video game because we've realize that while someone is incarcerated, you have all the time in the world and not usually a lot to do with it. And getting out has all these challenges we don't talk about or we don't necessarily address. So giving somebody a low stakes opportunity to practice the skills they need when they're released from prison by playing a video game over and over and over and getting those reps in and building those new patterns, I mean, we're going to have a lot more people be successful because they got those patterns of success built into their system.
Let me ask this question here. 19 years before you got your pardon, how much the life had changed from being inside when you first went in to when you got out? How much his life had changed?
I felt like I was getting out to the Jetsons. I remember when we were driving home that first day, there was a Tesla in front of us and a Tesla behind us. And I was like, an electric car? I've never even heard of this. This is a thing like in Virginia. I live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's just the technology and the way people were locked in on their phones and not talking to one another, not paying attention to one another. And you could order, it blew my mind. I didn't know you could order a pizza from a phone, because back when I went to prison, you had to order from a landline. They wouldn't let you order from a cell phone. And things like that, these little things had changed so much that it almost felt like I was on a different planet.
Yeah, it makes me think of Shawshank Redemption.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that actor, the black
Brooks.
actor.
Oh, you're talking about Morgan Freeman, yeah.
Well, both of them. Brooks would be the main one. Just couldn't adapt to the life outside. And then Morgan, Freeman, asking the guy to go to the bathroom every time because that's what he had to do inside, but they were in there a lot longer than you're 19. But still, man, it had to be a fairly decent, hard adjustment to figure things out.
Most of the things I did because somebody told me to, because I didn't know how to make decisions. I was used to being told what to do. So I only started on social media because somebody was in marketing said, you need to start telling your story on social media. So I went and downloaded an app and made a video and then put it away because I didn't know it meant anything. And all of a sudden I have a platform and I'm reaching out to people or connected with people all over the world. But if somebody hadn't told me to do that, I never would have thought to do it.
Good deal. Well, it sounds like you've been placed with a bunch of people, again, your family to support you. There's other people knowing your story and how you need to get it out there. So it looks like you've been placed with the right people.
I got really lucky, both while I was in prison and from that connections on the outside, as well as people I happen to do time with. And since getting out, same thing. I've just walked into a lot of the right rooms at the right time, shaken the right hands, met the right people, and gotten opportunities that I never could have imagined. Like I'm in a house. I just bought a house. You got to understand that I didn't think that was possible for 35 of the years of my life, no less, the last however many. And things have just opened up because I've continued to do the next right thing with whatever's in front of me. I've continued to help every person that I can while trying to learn to take care of myself as well, because I tend to burn myself out. And as I keep doing that, I keep finding enough. Like wherever I'm at, whatever I'm doing, I keep finding enough.
About roughly, you probably know the exact numbers. About roughly how big is a cell?
So it's depending on which one you're at, usually like 6x12 or 6x8 or 6x10.
Yeah, I was going to say something like an 8x10 or 8x12. I didn't know for sure. And I was just being funny here, but going, man, you leave your room you're in now to your next room, you're lost.
Yeah. It's funny because
used to be in that certain small area, and now 100%. you got this whole state of your own, basically, And so I'm just thinking, man, you get lost.
Well, so I was going to say, the guy that I helped, that story about the guy I helped get his GED and his family came to see him. Like I said, he was 6'6". He could not lay end to end in the bunk. He couldn't fit in the bunk. He was too big for it. He was a giant of a man. Wow. But then, when I got out, the first day we went to Costco and I'm in this giant warehouse. I remember looking around and my skin crawling and being freaked out because this is too big. Like there's too much space. There are too many people. I didn't know how to process it because I hadn't dealt with that in a long time. I've been in my safe little cell.
And been used to before you got locked up the town stores, so much smaller, not the huge warehouse like you just said. So, man, I don't want to change the subject too bad, but I hope when we get off here, give me your name of your boxer, your friend. I'd like to know him get his story too. So
I've been looking for him since I came home. We had one conversation when I got out. And then the number changed. I haven't been able to, I've been trying to find him. So I literally went on social media, was like, hey, if anybody knows this guy, I would really like to connect with him. Yeah. And I haven't been able to do it.
Wow. Yeah, I would love to have that. Well, for you, just contact, just to be able to share with him how life's going and let him share with you how it's going. But have his story on as well, because it would be great to hear him mention how much you bringing that information helped change his life.
Yeah, and it's the nickname he went by was Big Baby because he was a giant of a man, but he was a little kid at heart. He had a big smile and a big grin, and like I said, was crying when he got his GED. But it's an adjustment, and I would love to see him do that. And I always worry that he's locked back up, or that some of the people I know are locked back up, which is one of the reasons. Like when I had the book printed, so 500 physical copies and unlimited digital copies are going into jails and prisons free of charge. It was actually released earlier in prison than it was out here on the street. But then also, I've done videos for different platforms like Adobo. I've done different trainings. I've done different programs. I do things that go into prisons all over the country because I want people to know, like, this isn't your last day. It doesn't have to be the end of your story. Like, there's a way forward. You do the work and you'll end up in a different place. And that's one of the most gratifying things, because I remember when somebody came back in to tell me that, and I started to believe it was actually possible. If I had the chance to go in, whether that's for Big Baby or that's somebody else, and they hear that message and they start to believe in themselves in a different way, I can't imagine a better way to spend my time.
Oh yeah, and as you're talking, I'm just thinking of Jelly Roll. He's telling his story out there, and how he was going to be locked up forever, it seemed like, and finally got out, and finally found the way to stay straight and where he's at today. So Jelly Roll, I've been trying to get hold of you. You hadn't got back with me. I want you on my. I see you and everybody else's stuff. You need to be on my podcast. All right.
If you get a hold of me, you let me know. I'll see what I can do.
There you go. All right. Well, this is awesome, Jesse. Let's go ahead and let me see here. Your book again. Put it up here for everybody to see. The Best Part of Prison. Founder of the Second Chancer Foundation. All right. If you want to go ahead now and give some social media, website, stuff like that, how to get out to your book, and any other programs you got going on?
Sure. So Jesse Crosson, as you can see on the screen, jessecrosson.com, or Jesse Crosson or Second Chancer, chance with an R, on social media. I'm on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. We do events all over the country. We do events in prisons and jails. Whether people are looking for like programming or speaking or whatever they're doing, you can go to my website and you can find out, or you can go to second-chancer.org. That's a nonprofit. That's what we work with. And I just want to help people be free, whether that's physically free out of a jail or a prison, or maybe that's mentally free or emotionally free from things that have trapped them for a long time. And I know what it is to be locked in a cage. I know what it is to be locked in addiction. I know what it is to be locked in hopelessness. And I want to see people be free.
I wrote this book here. Your past doesn't have a future, but you do. Create your future today. So there's a lot of people just live back there. I can't do this because we made mistakes because we were young and dumb. Okay. Now we learn from it, do the best we can, plow forward. It won't be the best life possible, but it'll be the best one that we would have if we didn't go after our dreams and hopes.
Yeah.
I'm liking your book cover with that fence with that hole in it and providing that outside hope. So
we were all looking away to get out physically. All we had to do was get out internally, get out inside of us. And once I found that, even locked in that cell, even with handcuffs on my wrist, I felt free. There
you go. Good deal. Well, man, this has been powerful. I've enjoyed you sharing your journey and your story with us. And how long's this foundation been going now? I see you've been out, since 2021?
Yeah, so I've been out about 4.5 years. Started Second Chancer Foundation July of 22, I believe.
Okay. Now, what gave you the idea to do this? It's all of a sudden you said, man, everybody needs a second chance.
I mean, I believe that. And I was out and I was going to the General Assembly, the legislature here in Virginia, and I was talking and I was working, but I actually, this was a happenstance. So I realized that getting out, I was going to have a lot of stigma against me because I'd spent a lot of time in prison. I'd committed violent crimes. I didn't know who would give me a job. And so I started applying for jobs where I could use my story and my experience as lived experience. I could be a subject matter expert on prison and incarceration, rehabilitation, reentry. So I started applying for nonprofit jobs. And I was literally at a party one time and ended up talking to somebody who said, hey, I hear you have a great story, and started taking notes and going back and forth. And at the end of the call, or at the end of the conversation, he wrote my information down. He said, "Hey, I'm going to check some things out and I'm going to get back to you." And the next morning I got an email from him. The email said, "Hey, I want you to not take that job you're waiting on." I was on like the 6th round of interviews. He said, "Here's why." He gave me a bunch of reasons. And he said, "Instead, I want you to start a 501c3 nonprofit. I want you to pay yourself whatever they would have paid you. And I want you to go do good in the world." And that was it. He gave us seed funding to start Second Chancer Foundation out of nowhere.
Awesome. Man, believe it or not, there's still good people out there.
There really are.
Yeah, that's awesome that he thought that much of you and your story, but for him to see that in you, that you're really walking the walk. That's people are amazing out there. So
it meant the world to me, and it gave me a sense of belief and hope in myself that I didn't even know I could have.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. That's a powerful story there too. Man, you got a bunch of powerful stories. All I got is I broke my neck playing football. That's it. Hey, so
you've done a lot with it.
Well, I'd like to think that I have. And part of my reason I've done this podcast is people are tired of hearing my story, and so I want to help y'all get y'all's story out. And selfishly, I get to hear this first, so I get to get motivated, inspired first. So everybody else can follow my lead.
Sounds good to me.
All right, man. So, Jess, I appreciate you coming on. Hey, people are hurting and struggling, man. If you can leave us with a powerful message, positive message, that'd be a blessing.
Yeah. So we're afraid of accountability. It feels uncomfortable, but accountability really is the first step to freedom on every journey, no matter what happened to you, no matter what you've done. And then if you're willing to do the work, this doesn't have to be the end of your story. This can be the first chapter of a new story, of a new book, of a new life. And it starts today by making different decisions, little decisions day by day. And you never know where you're going to end up. I shouldn't be here right now, at least according to all the history and all the past, but I am where I am because I made different decisions every single day, made little habits, little choices, and somehow ended up in this place that I'm grateful for in a way I never imagined was possible.
Now, let me go back and ask this question here. Mm-hmm. Were you a believer? Jesus, Christianity, anything like that, or did that come to you? Because I heard you earlier, you mentioned blessing. You said blessing. And so, but we haven't brought this up. Did you have that going in, that you believed in a God or Jesus? Or did that come to you? Or you just use the word blessing and with no terms?
So I was not a believer growing up. I was not a believer going in. What I saw grace. And I think of grace as a religious term, but I also saw it for people regardless of their background or regardless of what they believed. And I experienced it myself. I felt just some kind of divine support, and I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know how to define it. My grandfather, who was probably the best human being I've ever known in my life, was a religious man, but he always said, look, God doesn't really fit in simple pictures. God doesn't fit in simple words. God's a lot bigger than all that. And that's kind of where I come from is I have those experiences and those things that I remember, and they changed my life and they changed the lives of some of the people that I was around or some of the people that I knew. And I still don't know how it fits into words or how it fits into pictures, but I do believe in it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was late in life. I was like 35, 38 years old before I'd come to Christ. But I went to church as a kid because mom and dad would make me and my brother go to church while they stayed at home cooking breakfast. But they made us go to Sunday school and then come back and pick us up. And so I grew up with the part of, it was like I knew there was a God, but it was hard to believe in him, because so much tragedy and bad stuff goes on. Why would a God let all this happen? And it was years later, I was still 35, 36, 38, something like that, before I finally came to him and then recognized and learned to live. Don't know everything. I tell people I only know enough about the Bible that would get me in trouble with someone else. I just have to, do my part and keep my peace with it. And from there. All right. I was just wondering about that because, I did hear you say blessing, but I didn't know if it was religious type of blessing or just using the word blessing. So, all right. Well, Jesse, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it. Man, it's a powerful story. Anybody else listening, share this out with someone to give you some hope. Be sure to look for, let me get that book back up here again. Get you a copy of the book, The Best Part of Prison with Jesse Crosson, and get you 2 of them. give it out to someone as a birthday gift. Don't just hold it for you. So, all right, Jesse, thank you for coming on. Everybody else, I'm Dr. James Purdue, the professor of perseverance. Do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.